the trial judge here found that there were significant questions about the truthfulness of Fani Willis's testimony. The trial judge said, quote, the odor of mendacity remains around this case. He said there's real questions about whether her testimony was untruthful. That's a quote, untruthful, from the trial judge. But nonetheless, the trial judge said, well, we can solve this if Nathan Wade leaves the case. And that's what ended up happening. But clearly, the Court of Appeals has now decided that's not sufficient. They lay substantial blame at the feet of the elected district attorney, Fani Willis. And now, as a result, this case, it's not quite dismissed, but it means that Fani Willis and her office will be disqualified from handling it.
Everybody having a good time?
A big development, and a big development that Donald Trump has wanted for a long time. That case against him in Georgia, the criminal case, where it's accusing him and several others of a racketeering conspiracy related to the 2020 election, it's already been paused. Now, it's not even backburnered. This is a case that will be dead in the water because the Georgia Court of Appeals is now saying that Fani Willis, the leader of the prosecution against Donald Trump, the district attorney in Fulton County, Georgia, she should be disqualified from being able to bring that case. The Georgia Court of Appeals is saying that it's a significant appearance of impropriety caused by the conduct of a public prosecutor. That is Willis, how she behaved, how she was speaking about the case, about Trump publicly, about how she was having a relationship with the top prosecutor that was concealed in this, a man named Nathan Wade. All of that, previously, the trial level judge had looked at and said, Fani Willis can stay on this case. We're not dismissing the indictment, but the Court of Appeals is now taking another look and saying, no, the trial judge was wrong. Fani Willis should be disqualified from continuing to lead this case. It would be a long process, or it will be a long process, to replace her, which is why I say this case is dead in the water now without Fani Willis, the person who was leading this case against Donald Trump in Fulton County. And just to keep tabs on how many cases there are against Donald Trump criminally, the other two in federal court, January 6th, and classified documents, those are dismissed. And then the additional case in New York City, where he was set to be sentenced, that sentencing is now not happening. So as Donald Trump enters the presidency, each of these courts that is handling a criminal case is essentially removing that issue from him to have to deal with in any period of time in the near future.
Well, Jim, for all practical purposes, it's over. This case was already in deep trouble because of the conduct of the district attorney, Fani Willis, and now it's all but over. So just to remind people, this is one of the 4 criminal indictments that had been brought against Donald Trump. The allegations that Fani Willis made here and the Fulton County DA's office made here related to Donald Trump's effort to subvert the 2020 election. There are many other defendants beyond Donald Trump in this case. Now, during the pretrial process, Donald Trump and some of his co-defendants alleged that the DA, Fani Willis, had a conflict of interest. She had a relationship, which she later admitted, with Nathan Wade, a person who had been brought in from the outside to be the lead prosecutor on this case. There were a series of televised hearings on this issue last year, during which Fani Willis and Nathan Wade both testified, yes, we had this relationship, but it didn't start until after Nathan Wade became the lead prosecutor. And then with regard to the allegation that their finances had been intermingled because Nathan Wade was being paid a lot of money to work on this case, the testimony was essentially that they split the costs on everything and they did it all by cash. Well, the trial judge here found that there were significant questions about the truthfulness of Fani Willis's testimony. The trial judge said, quote, the odor of mendacity remains around this case. He said there's real questions about whether her testimony was untruthful. That's a quote, untruthful, from the trial judge. But nonetheless, the trial judge said, well, we can solve this if Nathan Wade leaves the case. And that's what ended up happening. But clearly, the Court of Appeals has now decided that's not sufficient. They lay substantial blame at the feet of the elected district attorney, Fani Willis. And now, as a result, this case, it's not quite dismissed, but it means that Fani Willis and her office will be disqualified from handling it. And as a practical matter, it now goes into a sort of purgatory for an undefined amount of time. It's not coming back. It's over. There are a lot of things Fani Willis could have done differently, I think, to avoid this ruling. Number one, she could have stepped aside way earlier, as you said. Number two, obviously, I mean, she has acknowledged it was a mistake to have an affair with the lead prosecutor on the case, have a relationship with the lead prosecutor on this case. And separately, and I'm looking to see if this is in the opinion, I believe it is, because I know it's one of the issues that was briefed to the Georgia Court of Appeals. The DA made statements outside of court that the trial judge found were, quote, legally improper. For example, she went in front of a church while this case was pending, and she said essentially the reason these defendants have brought these motions, standard legal motions, is because they're playing the race card. And the defendants, Donald Trump and other defense lawyers, argued that that violated the responsibilities and ethics of a prosecutor. And the trial judge, oddly, said those statements that Fani Willis made out of court were, quote, legally improper. And then he did nothing about it. He said essentially, too bad, there's no remedy. So still going through this Court of Appeals opinion, I'm interested to see if they also opine on that as well.